Good morning, everyone. So glad you could join us again for coffee. Jay, I prayed that you had a nice week, nice weekend. I always just hope for people just to have a better day today than they had yesterday. Anyway, I just hope you had one good week, and I come to you, and my reflections are on the weekend, the liturgy for the weekend. This particular gospel, from Sunday, from yesterday's liturgy, is one that I read up on. I wanted to get some more ideas on it. It's the gospel is about Jesus telling another story, and I think that's why he was so successful, because he most of his preaching was done by telling a story. That's what a parable was a story. And he told the one about, where the farmer had the weeds growing in his field, and the workers and everybody said, "Why don't you get rid of all them weeds?" And he was smart enough, in telling the story. The farmer said, "No, no, no. If I try to get rid of all the weeds, I might get rid of all the plants, and the crop will be gone. Let the weeds grow up with the crop, and at harvest time, we'll separate the weeds and the crop. And I'll get rid of the weeds then." And then I started reading up on that particular story, and I think Jesus was trying to tell that, without the pain and suffering, there is no resurrection. There's no salvation. So often, when there's presence of evil, then the good becomes so much more important, and it shines. And I guess that's what Jesus was trying to teach, that life is not going to be easy, and especially, he said, if you follow me, it's not going to be easy. But with the sufferings and the ills that appear, you can also celebrate the good things. I tell you, I'm laughing because this past week I went and saw my pain doctor again. I think this is my third one. I'm not ready to have serious 10-hour back surgery yet. But in dealing with the sciatica, I'm dealing with pain doctors, and I have a new one. And she's a young gal. She's good. The other day, I went and had a visit with her, follow up on the shot I had. And so she walks in and she's got a bandage on her arm. And the first thing I'm thinking of is, I don't think it's good for a doctor, especially a pain doctor, to come in and see that the arm is bandaged. Anyway, she had this line, and I'm thinking, I've been reading up on this gospel and the parable, and there's her line, and you've heard this before: no pain, no gain. I looked at her and I started laughing. I thought, my feeling is about that. I don't know what the gain is with this pain that I have. I don't know what I'm gaining. Maybe graces. But anyway, I laughed because I thought, that's pretty much what Jesus in this parable is telling the story. That when there is pain and suffering, that some good can come from that. And look through the life of Jesus. So anyway, I started thinking that, I'm not always going to just pray that all the pain disappears, but I'm going to pray that I can celebrate anything that I learn, or that comes from handling the pain and the suffering, the help that you get, the people who care. That all happens when there is the pain and the suffering. Anyway, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of that pain doctor, no pain, no gain. And I'm looking at her, I thought, I don't know. Today's liturgy, as I'm going to tell you, this is, we celebrate today one of your and my favorite saints from Rome. I'm sure you remember the saint called Apollinaris. Saint Apollinaris. I got to tell you, for a minute I thought, I never heard of this guy. And you know what's interesting about it? This saint, he really lived a great life, but there's so little that is known about it. They're not sure where he was born. They think in Turkey. They think in Antioch because Peter preached there. And despite some myths about Apollinaris, he was not a disciple of Christ. But he was a disciple of St. Peter. And I think it's because he met him in Antioch. So the story is that he was probably born in Turkey. But the story of this guy's life, there's so much unknown. But Peter, when he became Pope, did make him Bishop of Ravenna in Italy. And, the time of persecution in Rome was severe. He had been persecuted. He's been tortured. He left. He came back to Ravenna again, was tortured again. He was sent to Greece. He came back 3 times. He came back. And he ended up dying because he didn't want to give up on his mission. And all the pain and suffering that existed did not stop him from celebrating the evangelization of people and the sharing of the good news. So I think about him, just a marvelous guy, but I knew nothing about him. But you will now, I hope, an Apollinaris. Anyway, the two fit together. And I think we all have to deal with, how do we deal with the bad stuff that goes on in life, the pain and the suffering? And how do we look for the good? And we need God's help for that. At the end of our time, we always say our mission prayer for miracles that are needed. And so I remember our retired Vincentians in Perryville, and I hope you do too. And also there's so many friends of the mission that are in need of God's special healing. And so I ask you to pray for Karen and Scott and Bill and Rick and Clarence and Bob and Betsy and Barbara, Sharon, Louise and Loretta, Maria, Nina, Tim. Pray for all these. And by the way, I thank you for praying for our cousin Gary. He's out of the hospital and he's able to deal with what he has, and it's not overly serious. And so thank you for your prayers. Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. May my hands be your hands, may my tongue be your tongue. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you. Above all, transform my soul and all its powers, that my memory, my will, and my affections may be in the memory, the will, and the affections of you. I pray you to destroy in me all that is not of you. Grant that I may live but in you and by you and for you, and that I may truly say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. God bless. Stay safe. Check us out on Wednesdays.